Hi, I'm Debbie Georgatos. Welcome to my show, America, Can We Talk? Today, we're going to talk about Pence's Poise and Kamala's Treachery, last night's debate. I believe we have Congressman Louie Gohmert calling in. He's going to join me and talk about ObamaGate, COVID, and more good stuff out of Washington. And Great Barrington and Trump's COVID leadership. And finally, Trump sign in Hollywood Hills. And of course, I'll tell you why these stories matter to you. Stay tuned.
Debbie Georgatos, host of America Can We Talk, is an author, attorney, and political analyst whose mission is to inspire the American political conversation about preserving liberty in the best country on earth. America Can We Talk is sponsored by GC Works, a Dallas-based company performing advanced technology research in the oil and gas industry.
And hello again and welcome to America Can We Talk and to today's First Five. I'm Debbie Georgatos. I'm going to guess many of you, but probably not all of you, watched the vice presidential debate last night. A lot of people commenting afterwards, online and in-person conversations about the appearance and who seemed to win and kind of the demeanor and facial expressions, especially of Kamala Harris. I want to hit some points. I want to talk about the debate, because not just from the why does she have to smirk so much attitude, but really kind of deeper thought about what we do in this country to choose a president and vice president. Because many people argue most Americans, vast majority, make up their mind before we even have a debate. So why we're spending all this time, money, distraction and analysis on a debate stage when most Americans are not, they're already tuned in, they know who they're going to vote for. But I want to hit some basic things about it. I'm starting with the whole concept of having the presidential debate commission that sets all these up, that makes the rules ahead of time and sets them up. It was supposed to be bipartisan. But as we've seen so far, saw again last night and saw in the first debate, they are simply not capable of choosing, and maybe these people don't even exist, but are not capable of choosing actual neutral moderators. And so I have a suggestion. I'm going to run through some of the reasons I'm telling you last night that moderator was very pro-leftist, pro-Biden, pro-Kamala Harris. But I have a suggestion about what we should do with these presidential debates. If we're going to have a commission or some organization that helps the parties agree on dates and cities and all that kind of stuff, let them do logistics. Let each candidate, this is for the presidential, vice presidential debates, let each candidate designate a moderator. So you have two moderators every debate, and you have rules for those moderators. For example, the moderator chosen by the Republican, either asks all the questions of the Democrat, and then the opposite happens. The Democrat moderator asks the Republican questions, or you split it up. So the Republican designated moderator gets half the questions in to the Republican candidate, half the Democrat. Make it that way. Drop the farce that there's any such thing as a neutral moderator, because there isn't. There's barely a neutral journalist. All these people claiming journalistic integrity and we're above all the fray of politics. We're journalists. They're all biased. They all have their own. And the thing is, they're just human beings. Of course they have their own opinions. Of course they have views on all sorts of issues. But I'll tell you last night just a few quick examples why I said the moderator last night, as my dad used to say, who looked like a very nice person, named Susan Page. Just so you understand who she is, she's currently writing a biography of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and has been spending an enormous amount of time working closely, directly with Nancy Pelosi for several months. Okay, right there, who would choose? I would not choose to write a book about Nancy Pelosi. No conservative would unless it was a critical book. This woman is writing a praiseworthy book about about Nancy Pelosi. So you had her, I'll just give you examples of the questions. She said something like, the first question to Vice President Pence was that the U.S. death toll, this is about COVID, U.S. death toll was worse than almost any other wealthy country on earth. The fact, the U.S. case fatality rate of 2.8% is below Italy, United Kingdom, Belgium, Sweden, Canada, France, Netherlands, Spain, Switzerland, and Germany. So The question was very much like one of those questions I was talking about the other day, where they teach you in law school that, you have to object if they ask this kind of question. Simply a kind of question like, do you still beat your wife? You can't answer it because there's a lie in the question. And so you have to force them to ask an honest question. This is a lie in the question, and it was intended to put Vice President Pence off guard, to be defensive of the Trump administration's handling of COVID virus. They also, she had the whole notion of the economy. This moderator asking questions of Vice President Pence last night said, your administration has been predicting a rapid and robust recovery, but the latest economic report suggests that's not happening. I mean, first of all, what a vague and loaded and frankly farce of a question. Many good numbers are coming out about our economy, many good numbers about our recovery after the COVID shutdown. In fact, we have right now, the Atlanta Federal Reserve is estimating that the third quarter GDP growth will be more than 35%, which would be the largest in history. I could go on and on and on, but the questions were loaded with lies. The questions for Vice President Pence were loaded with lies. So if you're going to have these debates, you got to have a moderator chosen by each side. Let each moderator have exactly the same standard timing questions to whom they ask questions, and then you might end up with a debate a little bit fairer. But beyond that moderator thing, I actually thought Vice President Pence pretty much knocked it out of the park last night. He is, as he always is, unflappable, even-keeled, well-informed, very insightful. He has a warm way of speaking. It's like when you listen to him, you're thinking, I'd have that guy over for Thanksgiving dinner. I'd invite him and his family. He has a warmth about him. He stayed even-keeled. He did talk over the end of his time period. He's often say, you have 2 minutes to answer this. If that is the sin of the century, then I don't know. And because the fact is, that kind of thing it occurs in all of the primary debates. It occurs regularly when you have what was a Democrat primary presidential candidates or the Republicans. They give you 2 minutes, and you have people answering a question in the time frame, and they often don't finish on time. They talk over the end of their time period, and sometimes the moderator is saying, hey, Mr. So-and-so or Ms. So-and-so, time's up, time's up. The fact is, you're electing a leader. You're not electing a church mouse who is going to instantly jump into stand and salute and silence once a moderator says time is up. You're not going to do that. In fact, so the talking over thing over the end of the time period, both of them did it. Probably Vice President Pence did it a little bit more, but not significantly, and pretty much just to end his point. You have, as the timing allotted to each, it turned out afterward that Vice President Pence got 38 minutes to speak, and Senator Kamala Harris, got 35 minutes. Okay, so he got 3 extra minutes. Pretty much in a debate of that length, it's about the same. And really, it wasn't a significant amount of time difference. But on the substance, the depth of what I thought Vice President Pence accomplished, what he was able to do was to pull out of her, by the questions he turned and asked her, pull out of her, they're not committing not to pack the Supreme Court, a monumentally consequential attempt they may make. Monumentally consequential. If they're going to change 150 years of American history with 9 people sitting on that court and pack the court because they didn't get their way on this nomination we have right now pending before the Senate of Amy Coney Barrett. The idea that they're even contemplating that they won't say, oh no, that would be out of bounds, that would be extreme, we're not doing that. He got her to admit that, and the American people now know that without doubt. I thought that was a consequential and very, very helpful admission he pretty much got out of her. Could not get her to acknowledge what she signed on to as a senator. She said she signed on the Green New Deal. She's trying to backpedal out of it, saying, oh, no, we're nothing about fracking. We're not banning fracking. We're not doing. I mean, she's either standing by her word and what she did back in the Green New Deal, and she raised her hand on stage when she was part of the lineup of presidential candidates on the Democrat side. They said, hey, Green New Deal or not, oh yeah, that's me. So he got her to admit she's not really, and I think they don't have a strong agenda they're willing to stand with. They got her to, essentially, Pence got her to acknowledge that. They don't have a strong agenda that they're willing to stand with. They are willing to fluff and duck and hide when they're faced with things they've promised, because they recognize it's not going to be popular. It may be popular with a radical left base, but it's not going to be popular with the average American voter who does not want to see thousands of jobs in America lost due to the canceling of fracking and all of the other left-wing radical elements that are part of the Green New Deal. So overall, I would say Pence did very well. I did very much dislike the conduct of Kamala Harris, kind of smirking and a fake smile, and just a lot of the attitude that just didn't seem, to use the term that the left so often uses, didn't seem very presidential. You could picture Mike Pence walking in the Oval Office tomorrow if he had to, and doing a fabulous job as president. Kamala Harris seemed a little bit petty, a little bit petulant, a little bit angry, a little bit just snarky in a childish way. Just not conduct not becoming of a presidential candidate. The other thing that's interesting, by the way, though, that the actual flat-out fib she told, that I will just quickly share with you on going through the debate last night. You may have heard her mention when they were asking her, essentially, are you going to pack the court? Which she won't answer because she doesn't want to lie and say, oh, no, he wouldn't do that, because that's exactly what they have in mind. And she can't commit to that. She can't say, oh, no, we'd never do that, because she knows they will. But her answer, instead of responding to that question, was to tell a story about Abraham Lincoln and how he, Abraham Lincoln, old honest Abe, hey, we all love him, was and how he had declined in the later part of his first term. He had declined to fill an opening on the Supreme Court when it became available in October. The election's coming in November, and he knew it just wasn't right. She tried to characterize his decision as he just knew it wasn't right, because after all, you know, the people were about to have an election, and the new president should get to make that decision. So she made it sound like this is what honest Abe did, is what she is advocating that Republicans should be doing, and that is not true. It was actually a great little report out of an organization that represents the Lincoln legacy, that speaks up for the record and corrects the record by Abraham Lincoln. And that group put out a statement. It's called President Lincoln's Cottage, PLC, a historical group and museum dedicated to preserving Lincoln's legacy. The simple fact is, he did have an opening in the Supreme Court. He did have a nominee in mind, and he did not ask the Senate to confirm that nominee before the election. But it was a flat-out, shrewd political calculation on his part that his choice for the Supreme Court might end up alienating voters. And so he decided, smarter for him to wait till after the election and make his appointment, his nomination then for that Supreme Court opening. So she lied about the important element. The point she was trying to make was say, well, this is just exactly what the Republicans should be doing. They should be acknowledging that this is wrong in this case to appoint a Supreme Court justice, because, and look, honest Abe figured that out. It wasn't true. That's not what Abe Lincoln did. But kind of wrapping up on the last kind of big point I want to make, I don't know, I'll tell you, we're trying to get, okay, we've got Louie Gohmert online. Last point I'll quick make, and I may come back to it later. But there is a whole big fuss on Twitter about the idea that during the debate, you had Kamala Harris said a line essentially to, Mr. Vice President, I am speaking. And it became hashtag I am speaking. And as women, liberal women, who were having a fuss online, complaining about the idea that Kamala Harris, that you had some interruption occur. You had a few more interruptions by Vice President Pence than you did by Kamala Harris, but they both did it, interrupted and talked over each other. She does her I am speaking line, and Twitter went wild with this basic argument that, you know, women are always picked on and men never listen to them, and I am speaking. One woman said, I'm going to tattoo that on my arm, I am speaking. And they were all outraged because she got interrupted by the vice president in the debate. And I'm going to just say this, ladies, man up. Seriously, you're running to become the second most powerful position in America, in the world, and you think you're okay to be the president? If you think Kamala Harris is that weak that she cannot handle being interrupted, like happens at every other debate, like happened between President Trump and Biden during that debate. There was interruption back and forth. You're really kind of insulting Kamala Harris, that she's this weak, fragile female who can't handle being interrupted. It's kind of like the people who used to say, I want equal pay on a pink platter. Sorry, you want to play in those leagues, you deal with interruption. She interrupted him, he interrupted her, and this is part of grown-up life in a presidential debate. And that, my very fine friends, is today's first five, or maybe a little longer than five. So we have online, I believe we have just a great guest. I love every time we have him on the show. Congressman Louie Gohmert is joining me. He is joining us by phone, and I'm going to make sure we have him. Hello. Hi, Louie.
Hey, Debbie. Always good to be with you, and I thoroughly enjoyed your analysis of the debate. Spot on.
Well, thank you. Good. I was going to ask you if you had any quick comments on last night. I thought that Vice President Pence just home run won, but do you have any quick thoughts about last night's debate?
Yeah, well, I totally agreed with you. He was fantastic and made his points, made them well. But, it was extremely condescending the way she would say, I'm not going to let you lecture me. You're not going to lecture me. I mean, come on. That's just so unnecessary. This is a debate. You're debating the point. And anyway, but I was hoping there toward the end the moderator would finally be fair and said, well, gee, and of course the moderator's promoting a lie as well that Trump has not agreed that he would step aside. Yeah, he wants to make sure it's fair, but the only party that's refused to accept the outcome of an election ain't the Republican Party, it's the Democrat. And so I thought, okay, well, she actually is going to finally finish up being fair. She'll turn around and ask, Mike Pence, well, what if Biden and Harris don't agree to stop after the election? They keep assaulting your victory. What would you do? But no, it's like you mentioned earlier. The question is basically, okay, if Donald Trump doesn't quit beating his wife, what will you and Joe Biden do? And, okay, Mike Pence, if Trump doesn't quit beating his wife, what are you going to do to stop him? Wait a minute. You're, as we lawyers say in the lawsuits, because I've ruled on this objection, it's legitimate. They're assuming information that's not in evidence. They're assuming facts not in evidence. They're not facts. You can't just say this happened, so therefore comment on it. If it's a lie, if it's based on a lie, and that's where we are. Same as the suckers and losers. Trump never said that, but these people just seize on any lie to try to make the president look bad. And when you have a moderator that's totally in your camp, as happened last night and as has happened with the president's debate, then you get away with lies like that, just like Joe Biden did.
Absolutely true. And Congressman Gohmert, I jumped right in because I'm so glad we had you. I will tell our listeners, Congressman Gohmert has served in the United States Congress since 2005. He represents, it happens to be Congressional District 1 from the great state of Texas. I always tell him I think that's somehow symbolic, or, it's a sign of what a leader he is. But prior to that, he has served as a judge. He served as a district court judge in Smith County, Texas. Anyway, I won't go through your whole resume, but he's been an actual judge. And I did a little thing on the show after the Trump-Biden debate where I was talking about the assuming facts not in evidence and you still beat your wife. That was one of my favorite objections, because that assumes facts not in evidence is so prevalent and such an abusive tactic to use when you're trying to throw someone off their game. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's
totally.
So you actually, since we're on that topic of who's going to actually accept transition of power, there was an HR House Resolution, HR 1155, House Resolution 1155, that was about the idea of the U.S. House put together a resolution saying a statement on the peaceful transition of power is a resolution. And I loved your comments about it. I have you tell our listeners what the original, as the way it was drafted, you did not support it. Why was that?
Well, because it was one-sided, and I had an amendment that would have made it, more of a bipartisan type bill. And Swalwell was the proponent for it, and he says, "How dare you be opposed to the Senate? Every member of the Senate voted for it." Well, that was a lie. It was a voice vote. All the senators weren't there, but I had Republicans come up to me and say, "Louie, you can't vote against this because it looked bad for Republicans." And I said, "Read the stupid bill. It says resolved that the president, basically must turn over power. The president or anyone in office must turn over power." And I was offering wording to the effect, the president or any candidate or those helping the candidate must agree to accept the outcome of the election, or maybe the fair outcome of the election, something like that, where you have the president and the candidate, because we had already heard from Hillary Clinton telling Biden under no circumstances are you to concede, and they're already lining up telling other Democrats, look, even if it looks like Trump won big on election night, don't give up, because we're going to be bringing in so many harvested votes, we can overcome even a landslide. Well, they're going to try to steal the election. So anyway, it was a ridiculous thing, and it turned out, I think there were 6 of us that voted no, but it was a slap at President Trump when the Democrats are the only party that has ever refused to accept the outcome of an election. Going back to 1860 with Lincoln, they didn't accept that, and the Democratic Party, of course, you go back to 1960, Monica Crowley confirmed for me, she worked for Nixon, but that in 1960 on election night, he got word there's plenty of evidence to show corruption, fraudulent vote in Chicago and possibly others. You ought to contest, and he said he wasn't going to do that. It would divide the country, so he just let it go.
Wow.
That was a Republican response.
Wow.
That was a Republican What did the Democrats do? Oh, somebody had a butterfly ballot in some part of Florida, and even though all 5th graders can work it properly, we're going to contend that it confused all of. Yeah, there was a 5th grade class that didn't have any trouble with it back then.
Yeah,
I recall. But anyway, yeah, they put the whole country into chaos and an election up in the air contesting, and it certainly sounds like they're prepared to do that again. And of course, there has never been the contentiousness ever that the Democrats put this president through by trying to stage a coup using the intelligence apparatus, the Department of Justice, including the FBI, Department of State, and the Department of Defense, because they were paying Stephen Halper, who was involved in this whole thing. So anyway, they're the ones that haven't accepted the outcomes of legitimate elections. So that should have been a question, and instead, they just get a pass as the moderator gangs up on the Republican.
Absolutely true. That was a great analysis. That was what actually also was one great point that Vice President Pence got in last night in the midst of all the fray. He did say to Kamala Harris, your party hasn't accepted the victory in 2016. You've been after Trump the whole time. Yep. Actually, this is right. I want to segue. This is a great segue into part of the things I want to ask you about. So President Trump recently essentially he stated in a tweet, and he issued an order authorizing the full unredacted release of Russia collusion hoax documents. So that's my term for it, the investigation into that. And so actually, I thought he had already done something pretty similar in the past, but I wanted to hear your take on that, and also your take on the thing. I saw that Sidney Powell had, she tweeted afterwards saying, Mr. President, you need to order the release, not authorize. So I was curious what you thought about what President Trump decided and about what Sidney Powell said.
Well, I think the president did exactly the right thing. And of course, you had the right move made by John Ratcliffe in beginning the additional, disclosure, declassification. So that was all good. But the way it appeared to me, Ratcliffe authorized the declassification of some information that indicates that Brennan went and briefed being Obama, about Hillary Clinton trying to find, even if it's made up dirt on Donald Trump, get that from the Russians. They figured Putin probably got wind that Hillary was looking for dirt and probably obliged, and it was all to detract from her private server. So what does Brennan do? Brennan comes out, and in fairness to Brennan, there's one thing he's really good at with a straight face, and that's lying. Got to give him credit where credit's due. Okay. He is really good at lying.
Yes.
And then he's quite capable of coming back later and saying, well, that wasn't entirely true. Well, yeah, it wasn't entirely true. Wasn't any of it true. But he's good at that. And I guess maybe he had to do that a good bit in his early days with the CIA. But it doesn't help when you're head of the whole intelligence apparatus in the United States and you go before the Senate and lie. But he comes out and says, oh, no, that's not, that's totally misunderstanding here. And so he starts sounding to me like he was lying. And if I were the president and I heard Brennan come out and sure sound like a lie yet again, and until all of the information comes out, then Brennan's going to be able to say, no, you don't know the whole big picture. Okay, enough lying. Let's get the whole big picture out here so we can all see. You knew about the coup. Obama knew about the coup. Hillary was trying to throw the election away from Trump to herself by covering up for the private server. And by the way, on covering up, I just got to say parenthetically here, Christopher Wray, as FBI director, was brought in there, and the president got bad advice on putting him there. He didn't know at the time that, it sure appears to me from the things I've read and heard that he said, he wanted to be the third musketeer with Comey and Mueller. And back during the Bush administration, he had told Comey, look, wherever you and Mueller are going, I want to be with you guys.
Wow.
So he's brought in to clean up the FBI. And apparently from the hearings we've had, the best I can discern, Christopher Wray assumed when he was brought in to clean up the mess at the FBI, that means sweep everything under the rug and it'll look clean. Well, he hasn't cleaned up the FBI. He has continued to cover up, sweep under the rug, whatever you want to call it. And I'm telling you, President Trump is not safe until that man is gone as director of the FBI. Won't be too soon for the country as far as I'm concerned. So that's my opinion, and I've got plenty that I base that on.
I could not agree with you more, and it was really unfortunate. I think there was some argument at the time that Christopher Wray was one that appeared that could get a confirmation out of the Senate that McConnell go along with. Other people maybe they wouldn't have, but I could not agree more. He needs to be gone. But let me ask you the kind of political question. there are people who argue that we're so close now. We have what DNI Director Ratcliffe sent to the Judiciary Committee, so everyone's aware, Brennan's own handwriting, apparently fully aware, cooking up, that Hillary was cooking up the whole thing to entrap or to accuse President Trump of colluding with the Russians. And some people are arguing that at this point, it would be too much like interfering with the election if things were to be completely released, unredacted. Now we are less than 4 weeks away from the election. And other people are arguing, such as myself, that it is political not to release it. But you've been in Washington since 2005, and you're a lawyer, and you've been a judge. What's your sense of what's the right thing to do?
Well, the right thing to do was indict people back last spring. And, we kept hearing that, Durham, he's going to do the right thing. Well, we've been hearing that for years, and nobody has stepped up and done the right thing. But we also kept hearing that Durham did not want to appear political and affect the election. And my contention last spring is that from here in, every day he delays bringing people to justice, at least with indictments, is another day he is politically affecting the November election by not holding these people accountable and showing the country. He should have showed the country exactly how bad the fraud was, the abuse of offices from all those departments, intelligence on to defense and justice and state. All of those abuses should have been shown to the public so they would finally know that Trump has been fighting his own corrupt people that were holdovers, and, that should have been out there long before now. And it was Durham's job, and now because Durham has not done his job, and I understand, he had one or two people quit recently saying, we're not going to be pushed into going too fast on this investigation. Well, anybody that said that, you can count on them being part of the deep state, dragging their feet to try to prevent this from coming out all before the election. So that tells you he did have some problems in his office, people that were wanting Trump to lose, because they know all of those corrupt people that were involved in the attempted coup, first the attempt to keep him from winning and using the office, which is a crime, to keep him from winning, and then after he won, to throw him out. Those people will not be held accountable if this election is stolen by the Democrats. So this is serious, serious stuff. And by Durham, if the Democrats are able to steal this election with enough illegal votes and enough of the Soros-type backed firms that are hired in big cities to come in and supposedly count the votes, cheat, whatever they got to do. If it is stolen by these people, then one footnote in history will be Mr. Durham, that he could have brought out the truth, and the truth would have guided people in their votes in this election. But because he took too long, drug his feet, was afraid to step up and do the right thing, he cost America that government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It became a socialist government, a socialist country. And as Dostoevsky said, the problem with socialism is not economic. The problem with socialism is atheism. That means the persecution of Christianity will begin in earnest under the socialization of this country. And it already started to some extent under the Obama administration. Who would ever dream a U.S. government administration would go after nuns that had taken a vow of poverty. But that's where we are. That's where we're headed. And Durham, quite possibly, if this election is stolen, he's going to deserve credit for not getting the truth out in time so people could make an informed decision on Election Day.
Could not agree more with every word you said, and it's a very profound and actually just deeply troubling analysis of where we are. It is almost breathtaking when you think about the enormous greatness of America from its founding and where we are in 2020. We're so close to having it topple over the edge. And so I don't know how much more time you have, but I did want to quick ask you. So I know that you went through COVID and you look great, sound great. And so first I want to just have you tell our listeners, because I can't tell you how many little notes I get. When are you going to have Louie Gohmert on? Is everything okay with him? So how you're feeling, and then also have you been able to be in touch with the president at all as he went through his very short episode with COVID? Have you been able to talk with him?
Yeah, well, through Mark Meadows. I haven't talked to him directly since he was diagnosed or tested positive. But yeah, I am doing great. I feel great. I'm feeling better than I did before I had it. And, my wife thinks maybe it was because I took 7 days and just didn't do anything but rest. But I only had 2 days of symptoms. I never had fever, never lost sense of taste or smell. But then again, because I tested positive, I think, and this is what some of the doctors say, some of the best in the country. If you could start the hydroxychloroquine, the azithromycin, the zinc, vitamin D. I also had the steroid nebulizer to protect my lungs that I did for a couple of days when I was symptomatic. But all of that stuff, I got to start very early because the president invited me to go with him on Air Force One, and I had to be tested, completely asymptomatic. I was shocked when the second test came back to positive, because the first one has false positive, but not the second one. And I'm going, but there's nothing wrong with me. I feel fine. But because I was able to start early, and I got to say, so many people all over the country were praying for me. I got those messages, and even though I got messages that were telling me to die, apparently those people prayed to the wrong God. And anyway, not the one that was all powerful,
right?
And so
the one
anyway,
and only,
it really all made a difference, and I feel great, much to the chagrin of others. But heck, I had been asked to speak at this fantastic fundraiser in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and I did that, and the county chair was not able to come that night, but anyway, he passed away this week. From what I understood, just a absolutely wonderful guy, passed away from COVID. So it was really tragic, but the left-wing media immediately grabbed it. Gohmert had COVID. Gohmert came to Arkansas and spoke, and this guy there at that county, the county chair, got COVID and died, must have been Gohmert. Never mind the fact that I'd already been over it. I tested negative. I tested positive for antibodies. I gave plasma that had lots of antibodies. And, I continued to be negative. And then I go. But the kicker was they had not bothered to find out that he didn't make that event. But that's how the left works. Don't let the truth get in the way. Just smear anybody any chance you get if they disagree with you. It's really a dangerous time for truth in America.
And that is a great closing thought. It's a dangerous time for truth in America, and it's really a dangerous time for people trying to speak up on behalf of all the greatness and goodness of America, the greatness of our president, all the things he has done for this country. It's a very, very volatile time in America. So, and actually, I'm glad I know you probably need to go, but I'll just tell you on this election thing, I feel so concerned. I understand exactly why President Trump, in responding to various questions, is not willing to say, "Oh, sure, as soon as you guys tell me I lost, I'll check out." He's basically saying, "We're going to make sure we have a fair election," and everyone can see who's paying attention, that there is a massive effort to cheat the country out of a true and accurate vote, a massive effort to force Trump out with what will clearly be a massive effort at mail-in ballot fraud. So I'm grateful for him that he doesn't just go along with whatever the left says. He actually speaks up and says, no, we're going to make sure we have fair elections. So God bless him for that. Congressman Gohmert, thank you so much for taking time to join me today.
Sure, Debbie, always wonderful to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, sir. Take good care. Okay, folks, I got to tell you, Congressman Gohmert, he is a gem in Washington. Here in Texas, we have a lot of Republicans in Congress. Many people have been in Congress a long time, but Congressman Gohmert is always one of the extraordinary, exceptional. Everyone is so grateful for him. And his, as you heard, just listening to him a little bit now, he's always willing to speak the truth. And he will, that resolution as one example, when the Democrats put a resolution through in the House saying, let's all agree that, you know, we're going to have a peaceful transfer of power. But when you actually read the language, which he always does, and he often has his colleagues come to him and say, wait, did you read this bill? What's really in it? Because he reads them. But this one was basically worded entirely to scold and rebuke the president, had no application to the willingness or the responsibility of the Biden team to also confirm their commitment to peaceful transition of power and to admit if they lost and move on. Democrats wrote it to scold Trump and ignore what Biden might try to do. So bravely as always, Congressman Gohmert wouldn't go along with that. Okay, I want to hit one more story today, and it has to do with this, with COVID-19. And with the president having gone through that, I have a clip I sent to Matt the Wonderful. President Trump, he had a very short episode of COVID. As you know, he's back in the White House. He's feeling well. He did a short little standalone press conference outside in the lawn of the White House. I have just a short clip for Matt to play. But what I want to talk about after we play that is what President Trump is saying, what he's trying to do, and then what the left is trying to do. And even standing back from that, whether you have left-wing medical opinion expressing their thought about COVID and shutdown and masks and all of the shelter-in-place rules we had, and then you have right-wing medical opinion. And I really want to get at that idea of what is happening and what should dictate the future of freedom in America, and what the two groups of doctors are saying. So we'll start with President Trump standing outside the White House.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president. And I'm standing in front of the Oval Office at the White House, which is always an exciting place to be. I got back a day ago from Walter Reed Medical Center. I spent 4 days there and didn't have to. I could have stayed at the White House, but the doctor said, because you're president, let's do it. I said, fine. You tell me what to do, and I'm going to listen. These are great professionals. They've done a fantastic job. And by the way, not only at Walter Reed, all over the country, we have the greatest doctors in the world. We have the greatest nurses, the greatest first responders, law enforcement, by the way, incredible. Firefighters, everybody. They're just great. We have great people. This is a great country. But I spent 4 days there, and I went in, I wasn't feeling so hot. And within a very short period of time, they gave me Regeneron. It's called Regeneron. And other things too, but I think this was the key. But they gave me Regeneron, and it was like unbelievable. I felt good immediately. I felt as good 3 days ago as I do now. I have emergency use authorization all set, and we got to get it signed now. And you're going to get better. You're going to get better really fast. This is things that nobody even thought of a few months ago. The job that the scientists, the labs, everybody have done is incredible. Then in addition to that, you have various other drugs that help a lot, but these, I view these, I know they call them therapeutic, but to me it wasn't therapeutic, it just made me better, okay? I call that a cure. So I want to get these things done. So we have to get them done, we have to get them approved, and I want to get them to the hospitals where people are feeling badly. That's much more important to me than the vaccine. And remember this, they're going to say that they're therapeutic, and I guess they are therapeutic. Some people don't know how to define therapeutic. I view it different. It's a cure. For me, I walked in, I didn't feel good. A short 24 hours later, I was feeling great. I wanted to get out of the hospital. And that's what I want for everybody. I want everybody to be given the same treatment as your president. This was a blessing in disguise. I caught it. I heard about this drug. I said, let me take it. It was my suggestion. I said, let me take it. And it was incredible the way it worked, incredible. And I think if I didn't catch it, we'd be looking at that like a number of other drugs. But it really did a fantastic job. I want to get for you what I got, and I'm going to make it free. You're not going to pay for it. It wasn't your fault that this happened. It was China's fault. And China's going to pay a big price, what they've done to this country. China's going to pay a big price, what they've done to the world. This was China's fault. And just remember that.
Okay, folks. That was just a short segment of, it was maybe half of what he said. But I want to share a couple things that on this whole topic of COVID and where we are now. We're into election season. We're in October. We're less than a month away from the election. Number one, President Trump's attitude, what you just heard him saying, this is a man who is, gets COVID, gets treated, gets better, comes back, and his attitude is he's full of strength, he's effusive, he's telling Americans, he tends to repeat himself as you notice, but he tells Americans, I want everyone to have what I had. I want you all to be better. He's wanting to get these therapies out to the people. And this is a guy who's just saying, I'm grateful. And in fact, he acknowledges maybe the fact that he got it turned out to be kind of a blessing because he figured out, wow, you can get therapies, you can get treatments, and you get better, as he keeps calling it a cure. That's a whole legal battle going on, by the way, if you wonder why he kept going on to the therapy versus cure language. The FDA has, in federal law, it says the FDA is the only one that can actually define something as a cure or as a treatment, a cure or a treatment. FDA owns the right in the medical community to use those terms. So when doctors try to talk about other treatments they have available, they have to use the word therapies because in federal law, FDA does not own the right to exclusively define something as a therapy. And that's probably where this is coming from with Trump. They keep saying, you can't say cure. FDA has to call it a cure before you can say that. He's saying, hey, whatever it was, it cured me, I feel better. But I love his spirit. I want to tell you about, though, there are two competing things out there that relate to what doctors have to say about whether we should stay shut down till we have a vaccine, whether we should go back to shutdown and mask and social distancing, stay with that, or should we open up America and open up our whole economy, open America back up into normal life, go back to normal in America. So you have on the left, you have the left-wing doctors, and they are the Dr. Fauci crowd. The people have some connection to the advocacy for vaccines. This is another reason, by the way, why I would never wish illness on anyone, but a great outcome of the fact that President Trump contracted coronavirus is that he is less gung-ho on vaccine. He's saying, hey, I'm more excited about this, about getting you, the American people, treatments that work than I am about the vaccine. But back to this two kind of voices from the world of doctors. One, the Fauci expert, very much connected to the vaccine industry, very much the intellectual realm of doctors, the doctors who haven't treated a patient in decades, but they do research, and they, the left-wing doctors, are trying to be as dismissive and rejecting of anything that actually works well and helps people. And so you've had Fauci rolling his eyes, figuratively speaking, mocking, deriding inhaled budesonide, mocking or deriding hydroxychloroquine, other treatments that actual doctors on the ground treating people are saying this works. You've had this Fauci, other doctors like that saying, no, this is terrible, don't do that. Stay in place, stay frozen in place, stay at home, stay with a mask, socially distance, don't open the economy, don't open America, wait for a vaccine. That's the left-wing doctor worldview. That worldview came out in an editorial in the New England Journal of Medicine, where they did not outwardly or openly endorse Vice President Biden in this next election, but they took a lot of shots at President Trump. And they're talking about, they're critical of President Trump's handling of the pandemic. So it's really important to understand, even in the medical world, just because you have a PhD or you have an MD degree and you're a brilliant person does not mean you somehow lose, therefore, once you get that medical degree, you lose your political leanings or affiliations. In fact, if you remember my show a few months ago, I had Dr. Robin Armstrong, who is based in Houston, Texas, and he's successfully used hydroxychloroquine in treating COVID patients. And he said, he's talking to a medical doctor he knew who said, oh yeah, I know how to tell how any doctor, whether they're Republican or Democrat. You just ask them what they think about hydroxychloroquine. If it's a Republican doctor, they say, yeah, it works great. I prescribe it all the time. It's very effective. People get better. You ask a Democrat doctor, how do you like hydroxychloroquine? And they do the Fauci line, oh my gosh, no, it's terrible, don't do that. So politics and just because you're a doctor doesn't mean you lose your political persuasion. So you have the left wing, Fauci, New England Journal of Medicine, not necessarily practicing doctors, but people who are the intellectual style. And then you have on the right, the thing I want to tell you about, there is a group, a document signed on. It's called the Great Barrington Declaration. You can read it on my website, americacanwetalk.org, on the homepage under shows, drop down, list of links. You can read this. Over 4,000 doctors now have signed on, public health professionals, etc., sign on urging an end to all COVID restrictions, urging an end to it. I had a great clip to play for you today. I'm going to have to wait till next week to play it for you, but it's by Dr. Simone Gold, who is the one who founded Frontline Doctors, and she's coming on the show, I think, in 2 weeks. We have a date set. Anyway, she did a great video just talking about the absurdity of masks, the absolute absurdity of masks as a means of preventing the spread of COVID. At the conference I hosted where she spoke, she talked about masks being used to stop the spread of a virus is about as effective as building a chain link fence to keep out mosquitoes, as in zero effective to stop the spread of the virus. But back to this, you ought to read this declaration by doctors, Great Barrington Declaration, basically saying it was a huge mistake in America and around the world to put in place the overarching COVID restrictions applicable to everybody. They're saying very, very, very wrong policy, unhealthy, unwise, dangerous, not good. So I'm telling you this because you'll hear friends who say, well, now the New England Journal of Medicine kind of said, Trump did the wrong thing and we should say shut down forever. Please understand there are conservative doctors who are actually on the ground treating patients who are actually part of the effort to advocate for ending the shutdown of COVID restrictions. And when you have someone like Dr. Simone Gold, who's also a lawyer, is making the point that this whole shutdown has far more dangerous implications for the political future of freedom in America than it has for this whole COVID thing, than it has for the actual threat of the virus. She said if you weren't scared to death and locked in your home last year because of the flu virus, you have no reason to be scared to death locked in your home this year because of the COVID virus. I'll do more on that next week, but I want to wrap up by saying I'm going to hit one other very, very short, quick story. A 30-second story, but very fun. I sent Matt the Wonderful a picture of someone doing, if you always see a famous picture in LA and Hollywood, you're driving along, you see up in the hill, Hollywood. I want to show you what someone put up on the Hollywood Hills. Someone put that, you could see this sign, Trump, on someone's private property going along the 405 major freeway in LA. We used to live in San Diego and I've been up there in that area many times. So you can see this from the freeway. Someone put in their private property, visible from this massive freeway, Trump. And shockingly, the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans, entered this private property and took this sign down. Took down that Trump sign, not there anymore. And Caltrans explained they had to do it because it was a life and safety issue, because there were concerns about distracted driving. This is in an America where you have billboards all over this country on every major freeway, billboards that say things you love, billboards that say things you hate, billboards that say things you've never heard of before, but one Trump sign, and the California government is on to private property, taking it down as a safety issue, a distracted driving issue. And you tell me the government does not crack down on free speech. You got to wake up. If you think that, you don't know what you're talking about. California, the actual government entity, Caltrans, entering private property, because God darn it, you're going to have people driving on 405 recognizing that some people in California like President Trump. As I do at the close of every show, I like to tell you why the stories we talked about today matter to you. So we started our show today, it seems like a long time ago, we started our show today talking about Pence's poise and Kamala's treachery last night in the vice presidential debate. Moderators, another leftist, she said subtle climate science, not. She said COVID out of control, not true. Economy not recovering, not true. VP Pence stayed in character, unflappable, serious, gentle in tone, substantive, experienced. Exposed the Biden-Harris plan. They are going to try to pack the Supreme Court. They wouldn't deny it. They do support the Green New Deal, which opposes fracking. It will destroy thousands of jobs. Repealing tax cuts equals raising taxes, but she couldn't admit that. And the COVID plan is just a copy of what Trump administration is doing. That was actually one of the greatest lines that Pence had, because when they asked her, well, what are you going to do about COVID? She listed what the Trump administration is already doing. So Senator Kamala Harris was never popular with Democrat primary voters. She had a major likability deficit, off-putting mannerisms, making faces, cackling, condescending attitude, all were on display during the VP debate, reeking of undesirable special rules for women vibe. Much more disturbing, Harris's unflinching willingness to straight up lie, find people hoax repeated by Harris, shot down by Pence, losers and suckers, the fake, and again, fake Atlantic story repeated by Harris, rebutted by Pence, Lincoln and the Supreme Court vacancy, completely bogus portrayal by Harris. The VP debate did not generate enthusiasm for Harris. Pence added confidence to the Trump-Pence ticket. And on Great Barrington and Trump COVID leadership, why it matters, Americans must wake up. People called doctors are not immune to political pressures. They're not above endorsing political agendas. They can conflate political viewpoints and medical advice. When a doctor's political preferences can be predicted by his or her opinion on hydroxychloroquine, the doctor is not practicing, quote, science. Dr. Anthony Fauci is a globalist who believes in masks, lockdowns until a vaccine is available. His disparagement of hydroxychloroquine, budesonide, and other therapies is not based on science, it's based on his political worldview. There are now over 4,000 physician signatories to the Great Barrington Declaration, which affirms that lockdowns and masks are ineffective and should cease. Which view is science? The best answer for America: trust freedom and free people to find truth and take care of themselves. And the Trump sign in Hollywood Hills, huge Trump sign, goes up on private property in Sepulveda Pass, one of the most heavily trafficked areas of LA. Are we on the Trump sign? We have that slide? Oh, there we go. Okay. And immediately taken down by government workers as a traffic hazard? Right. Blue California may not be as blue as Democrat mainstream media wants you to believe. Governor Newsom is not popular. He recently issued an order that even between bites in the restaurants, you can take your mask off at a restaurant, but you should put your mask back on between bites. Seriously, he said that. The LA mayor, maybe it wasn't an order, but he said it. LA Mayor Garcetti is not popular. Even blue state residents understand what freedom is and isn't, and they know the difference between an elected leader and a tyrannical ruler. Surprising results coming in California on November 3rd. You know, folks, stranger things have happened. I'm Debbie Georgatos. This is my show, America Can We Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in every Monday through Thursday at 3 p.m. Central Time to my show, America Can We Talk, where I always talk truth about America because America matters. And I will talk to you next time.
America Can We Talk? Truth about America.